January 8th, 1966, the Fillmore Auditorium, San Francisco. The Grateful Dead play an acid test, pranksters running the electronics, cops circling outside, the whole beautiful disaster unfolding under Bill Graham's borrowed roof. Somebody records 4 12-inch reels of tape, and from those reels comes what Deadheads have called for decades the oldest surviving live tape of the Grateful Dead. It's been on archive.org for years. It's been cited in podcasts, blog posts, YouTube essays. Dead.net built a whole episode around it. There's just one problem. Most of the music on that tape probably isn't from the Fillmore at all. The argument I'm going to make is straightforward. The circulating January 8th, 1966 Fillmore acid test tape is not a faithful document of a single show. It's a prankster edited compilation, assembled after the fact, sourced primarily from acid tests in Los Angeles weeks later, narrated over by Ken Babbs, and released through Kesey's son, Zane, on VHS in 1990. The Dead community built a founding myth on top of mislabeled evidence, and the people who made the tape, they've basically admitted it. So how did we get here? Start with what we actually know. The January 8th acid test at the Fillmore was real. Chaos, even by acid test standards. Garcia described the acid test bluntly. No gig, no structure, no stage in any meaningful sense. The pranksters ran the electronics, which meant things broke constantly. On the circulating tape, you can hear the band calling out, "Hey Ken, these microphones don't seem to be working. Nothing up here is working." Owsley Stanley was there, not yet the Dead sound man, but already circling. The Dead didn't even have a sound guy yet. Phil Lesh had offered Bear the job, more or less on the spot. "We don't have a sound man." Owsley: "I don't know anything about that, but I guess I could probably learn." So who was running the recording equipment that night? The pranksters, same people who'd run it at every acid test. The 4 reels from that night went straight into the prankster archive, which, if you know anything about the pranksters, is basically a polite word for a pile of unlabeled boxes in a barn. Dick Latvala, the Dead's own tape vault archivist, a man who spent years cataloging and organizing the band's recording history, encountered the same problem when he tried to work with prankster material. "The labeling was terrible," Latvala said. "They taped a lot of stuff and labeled it very poorly." Zane Kesey himself acknowledged this was generous. For the pranksters, that much of a label was a lot. We're talking about an organization that didn't believe in filing systems on principle. The pranksters saw organizing and cataloging as straight world thinking. Their archive reflected that philosophy. 520 reels of film eventually ended up at the University of Oregon, and substantial unsynced audio sat alongside it, all of it a puzzle that nobody had the map to solve. Now the Dead left San Francisco for Los Angeles after the Fillmore test. They played the Trips Festival at Longshoremen's Hall later that month, one of the key early moments, but by early February the scene had shifted south. Kesey had faked his suicide, truck on a cliff near Eureka, a note reading, "Ocean, ocean, I'll beat you in the end," and split for Mexico, leaving the pranksters rudderless. Without Kesey there to absorb the chaos, the whole operation started running hotter. The Dead headed south with them anyway, and over the next 2 months they played a string of LA acid tests. Northridge Unitarian Church on February 6th, the legendary Watts test on February 12th, Empire Studios on February 25th, and Cathay Studios on March 19th, among others. The band flew down to LA without Owsley. Bear had other business, and were met at the airport by his friend Gene Mayo Millet. The Watts test at a warehouse in Compton became the thing of legend. But the key detail is simpler. The pranksters brought the same recording gear to every one of these shows. Same reels, same equipment, same complete lack of documentation. Which brings us to the tape itself. 5 songs circulate on the Fillmore recording. "I'm a King Bee," "Hog for You Baby," "Caution," "Do Not Stop on Tracks," "Death Don't Have No Mercy," and "The Star Spangled Banner." About 77 minutes of audio in the longest composite version. For decades, all of it was attributed to January 8th, 1966, the Fillmore. Then, a researcher named Archduke, working on the Lossless Legs forum, did something nobody had bothered to do before. He went frame by frame through the acid test video, the Kesey Productions release that had been the source of this audio all along, and matched what he could see to what he could hear. Not casually, methodically, comparing guitar fingerings to audio, matching clothing across multiple photographs, cross-referencing newspaper coverage from the LA Free Press. The kind of forensic work that the Dead community prides itself on for set lists and tape generations, but had somehow never applied to its own origin artifact. The King Bee didn't add up. Archduke found that Garcia's guitar solo in the audio synced exactly to the video footage. The fingering matched the sound, beat for the first several minutes. That's definitive. You don't get accidental sync across two different performances. You don't get the same solo from different nights, and Garcia, of all guitarists, never played anything the same way twice. The fingering matches because it's the same performance. And the video footage, it was clearly from Cathay Studios in Los Angeles, March 19th, 1966. There's a newspaper photo from the LA Free Press dated March 25th, 1966, that shows the same venue setup. Garcia is wearing the same polka dot shirt and orange front vest in the sweeping up footage as he wears during the performance. Standing next to Mountain Girl while she's sweeping, same clothes, same location. Not the Fillmore, LA. The caution into Death Don't Have No Mercy told the same story. Archduke and other researchers traced it to the February 25th, 1966 acid test at Empire Studios in Los Angeles. Multiple people visible in photos from the February 25th test appear in the film wearing the same clothes, pranksters and random attendees alike. One guy standing by the door in a black jacket and turtleneck can be spotted in both the known February 25th photographs and the film's black and white dance footage, asking Neil Cassidy for a cigarette. You can't put the same guy in the same outfit in two different cities on two different dates. The clothes don't lie, even when the labels do. So at minimum, 2 of the 5 songs on the Fillmore tape are from Los Angeles, weeks and months after January 8th, and Zane Kesey confirmed it in writing. Everything was mixed and mislabeled, Zane wrote. The narration says Fillmore, but the actual sound and footage is from LA. Now, about that narration. Ken Babbs is all over the tape. I'm nestled somewhere deep inside the bowels of the Fillmore auditorium, and so on. It sounds like a live broadcast from the Fillmore. It isn't. Analysis of the tape reveals at least 2 layers of Babbs' voice. He dubbed narration on top of the original recording, probably by copying the tape to free up an extra track. In some sections, you can hear 2 Babbs speaking simultaneously. The narration was added later, creating the impression of a single Fillmore event over audio pulled from multiple shows. And Babbs told us exactly what he did. On a 2021 Deadcast episode, the one literally titled Hug the Heat or the Story of the First Dead Tape, Babbs described his process in plain language. We had this tape, the Fillmore Auditorium acid test. We had so many tapes, reel-to-reel stereo, great tapes, and they needed work. They needed to be edited. I edited that Fillmore Auditorium tape down to what I consider to be a 2-sided record, cut the tape and splice 20 minutes aside. Read that carefully. Babbs isn't describing preservation, he's describing authorship. He took raw material, from how many sources we don't know, and cut and spliced it into a product. A 2-sided record. 20 minutes aside, that's 40 minutes total, which means Babbs cut almost half the audio from whatever source material he started with. He added narration, removed sections, layered his voice over the music. This wasn't an archivist transferring fragile reels to a safer medium. This was a prankster making something new out of raw footage, the same way Babbs had spent years editing the bus tapes from the 1964 cross-country trip. He approached the dead material the same way he approached everything, as source material for a prankster production. And then, in 1990, Zane Kesey's Kesey Productions released it on VHS as the acid test video. Dupree's Diamond News, reviewing the release that year, described it as featuring a heavy dose of the Grateful Dead as they appeared in concert at the tests. Plural. Even the first review acknowledged multiple tests, not one, but something happened between 1990 and the internet era. The VHS got ripped. The audio got separated from the video. Tape traders circulated it. And somewhere along the way, the attribution collapsed from acid test compilation to January 8th, 66 Fillmore. Once it hit archive.org with that date in the file name, the game was over. That's how provenance works in dead circles. A date gets attached, it gets repeated, and after enough repetitions, it becomes fact. Blog posts cited it. YouTube videos used the audio. Podcast episodes built narratives around it. Dead.net's own Deadcast built an entire episode around it as the first Dead tape in 2021, with Babbs himself cheerfully explaining the editing process without anyone on the show flagging what that editing actually meant for the tape's attribution. At least 3 different audio edits of the Kesey video have been released. The original 1990 VHS, a 1996 remake, and a later DVD version. They don't all contain the same audio. Some segments appear in one version and not another. Songs get resequenced. Audio quality shifts between edits where different source reels were apparently swapped in. The tape isn't even a single stable artifact. It's a family of edits, all descending from Babbs' splice job, each one a slightly different arrangement of the same misattributed material. Which version is the first Dead tape? There isn't one. There are multiple prankster remixes of an already remixed compilation, each one claiming to document an event that most of the audio didn't come from. So what's actually from the Fillmore? Honestly, we're not sure. And that uncertainty is the point. The equipment malfunction exchanges, "nothing up here is working," might be genuinely from the Fillmore, since Babbs was running electronics there, and the complaints are directed at him by name. Some of the ambient prankster chatter could be real. The Star-Spangled Banner is uncertain. Archduke speculates the earlier Taste Bud fragment might be from one of the December 1965 tests based on the chatter that follows it. But the Dead's actual songs, the extended jams that people point to as the earliest surviving live Dead performance, the music that gets cited as evidence of what the band sounded like in the beginning, the forensic evidence says Los Angeles, not the Fillmore, not January 8th. Weeks and months later, in venues across Southern California, recorded by the same prankster equipment that couldn't be bothered with labels. Maybe someday a deeper dig into that Oregon archive will clarify what came from where. But based on what we know now, the January 8th 66 Fillmore acid test tape is better understood as an acid test compilation, a best of sampler assembled by Ken Babbs from the LA tests, narrated to sound like the Fillmore. Released on VHS by Zane Kesey, and adopted by the community as something it never claimed to be, when you actually listen to what the people who made it have said. None of this is an indictment of the pranksters. Babbs wasn't trying to deceive anybody. He was making a listenable record out of chaotic source material. The same way he'd always worked, the mislabeling happened because the pranksters never cared about dates and labels in the first place. That was the whole point of being a prankster. But Deadheads care about provenance obsessively. These are people who can tell you the lineage of a cassette tape across 4 generations of copying, who debate soundboard versus matrix with the intensity of wine sommeliers arguing about terroir. And in this one case, the community's own origin tape, the artifact that supposedly captures the very beginning. Nobody did the forensics. Not until Archduke. Nobody connected Babbs' Deadcast admission to the video evidence. Nobody took Zane's own words. Everything was mixed and mislabeled, and followed them to their logical conclusion. That's not stupidity, it's mythology. Deadheads wanted a founding document, and here was a tape labeled with the right date from the right place. The first Dead tape isn't a lie, it's a prankster tape. And if there's one thing the acid test should have taught us, it's this: never trust a prankster.